Good to see you here. This is a meeting of the Council's Public Safety Committee. And the other members of the committee, besides myself, are Councilman Tory Penn and Councilwoman Samantha Ingram. Our other members who are here are President C.J. Hall, Councilman Joshua Woods, and Councilman Bo Fleming, and of course our attorney, Jonathan Maples, and we got city staff as well. So thank you all for coming today. We are here today to begin looking at ordinances that primarily today anyway, impact dogs running loose, stray dogs, abusive dogs, dangerous dogs, that sort of thing. Looking at our ordinance or ordinances and how we can improve those ordinances, make them stronger, increase fines, whatever we find that we need to do. We've heard a lot of discussion in the community. Some people have come down to the council to speak to us about some issues that they've experienced. So we want to at least get started looking at the dogs portion. We know that there are a lot of issues in the community that involve animals, that whether it's rescue organizations and needing more funding for rescues, needing more funding for spay and neuter programs, needing more funding for the shelter. Where are we on the shelter? You know, all of those kinds of things are out there. But we've got to get started somewhere. And what has been coming to us for the most part lately anyway has been the issue of dogs. So with that, I sent some information to animal control asking them for some updates on certain things. And my colleagues sent their questions and concerns as well. So we'll get started, I think, today with Robert Bryant and Director Graves on going over just exactly what the ordinance says now, what you can and cannot do, what the responsibilities of dog owners are, and where you think we're going, Robert and Director Graves, with fines, with your ability to go on property and take dogs from the owners, and just the kinds of problems that you encounter. If we can just start there, and Robert has sent us some information as well, but I think an overview is important, and we do have the ordinance in front of us. So council members, if you've got any specific questions too, you can ask Robert about those.
Good morning.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
So I want to start off by saying, we spoke several times in city council in response to some of the people that have come down and talked to us. We started the process of redoing our city ordinances back in November. It's not an easy or a quick process. This is not changing a few ordinances to clarify language. This is an entire rewrite of what we currently have. So we're starting from the ground up and building a complete new set of ordinances. As part of that process, we have looked at just about every other municipality in the state of Alabama and compiled the best of their ordinances into what we need. And we're adjusting the language to fit Mobile. As you know, Mobile has a unique set of laws that we operate under. So we have to tweak a few things to make sure we're not violating any of those provisions. Right now, we are in the final draft stage of the current ordinances. The administration has asked us to send it out to several defense attorneys and judges from across the state to review and give their feedback on. That way we make sure we come back with something that's legally stable and shouldn't have too many challenges to it. So that's where we're at right now. Some of the things we're looking at updating with the ordinances primarily is the penalty section. Our penalties are limited for the most part to $100 fines and court costs if those court costs are levied by the courts. In many of these situations, the courts may come to agreements or deals where they do not charge court costs. They waive court costs, and they may waive fees as well. So right now, where we're looking at $100 fine for most incidents, we are upping that to anywhere between $300 and $500 just on the fine side. That does not include court costs that come with it. Additionally, any subsequent violations to the first violation can result in jail time up to 1 year at the 1 year. Right, Chelsea? At the discretion of the courts. Are there any specific questions on some ordinances, or would you like to see where we're going on some of them?
What would y'all?
Corey, you have a preference?
Yeah, yeah, thank you, Madam Vice President. You stated about the upping the fine penalty. We have noticed across other cities that has been, I guess, I know it's some challenges, but you say you looked at other cities. What are the typical fine numbers that we?
So the fine numbers are really established by state. The max that we can go is $500.
Okay.
So that's the max we can levy at the city level.
And then the penalty from time served, that's up to 1 year. That's state as well.
I was just actually corrected. That's 6 months, but that is state. Yes.
Okay. That's all I have for right now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question, the models that you've had an opportunity to review, under the penalty section, are you finding specific sections designated specifically to like dog bites, loose dogs?
So one of the changes in the new ordinance section is the fine schedule that is in the animal control ordinance that you're looking at is actually going away, because there's a general fine schedule for city ordinances overall that we will be referencing back to. But yes, in the new rewrite of the ordinance, not necessarily in the penalty section, but in each ordinance, depending on whether that's an aggressive dog ordinance or a running at large ordinance, there may be a different fine laid out in that level of the ordinance based on the type of violation.
So we should see increased types of violations in the draft that you're working on.
You will see new types of violations, yes, and you will see increased penalties associated with those violations.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So when we start looking at the violations, and I think that's something that gets a little confusing for a lot of folks. If we go through the ordinance as it is now, there's a duty to restrain animals, keep your animal, in this case, we're talking about dogs, on a leash or some sort of restraint, whether it's in the yard or not. And then, let's see, the impounding and abandonment of animals, what the animal control officers have at their disposal to do. You know, I think one of the problems that we're seeing most of is just dogs running loose for whatever the reason may be. Either somebody just puts them out on the road and they're considered stray at that point, abandoned, or somebody's dog happens to get out of the fence or doors left open and it starts to run loose. And then in some instances, those dogs become aggressive and they bite people, maybe the neighbors, or they threaten neighbors, or the neighbors at least feel that they're being threatened. So I think we're seeing a lot of those, and that's primarily what we're hearing about in these different cases. So if you don't mind, just run through what you, as in your department, what you all are able to do when you get a call like this. How do you respond? You know, can you go on private property? If so, what are the circumstances? How are cases being reported? If somebody, and you and I were talking about this earlier, if I see a dog running loose in my neighborhood, when you all get there, that dog may not be there anymore. How do you handle those?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to take a step back to the ordinances real quick, and then I'll come back to that.
All right.
And you brought up a good point about the ordinances, and this is part of the reason we're doing a complete rewrite instead of a revision. Some of the things in there are double faceted. Some ordinances mean the same thing. Some ordinances aren't clear. The language just isn't clear. And we're separating a lot of it into animal owner responsibilities, animal control authority, and then other general rules and requirements, so that we kind of have, it makes it easier to read. So when I want to see what the violations are, I go to the animal owner responsibilities and I see those violations. And then the second part of that will be the authority that animal control officers have to take action. Now, going back to your question, dogs, for one, we know dogs are unpredictable animals, especially dogs that are unknown to us. Now, the animals that we own at our house, the animals that we take care of at the shelter, we have interactions with them. We know how they behave. You know how your pets at home behave. But the reality is some stray dog that you have never met in your life, you don't know how it behaves. Even my animal control officers, with the several years of experience and training that they have, cannot predict the behavior of every animal they encounter. And I say that to say, we are not the magic animal police. We don't show up, they immediately run up to our trucks and want to jump in. As Mr. Woods knows, we had an incident in his district that took us several weeks to resolve. These dogs we could not catch them. So when we get there, the number one problem we run into is the dog is not there when we arrive. We receive anywhere from 20 to 30 calls a day, and on average, we have 4 animal control officers working. So by the time we clear one call or 2 calls and get to the next call about an loose dog, it could be anywhere from 45 minutes, 30 minutes to an hour and a half. There's no guarantee that same dog is in that same spot. Now, my officers will ride the area for a brief amount of time, 10 to 15 minutes, trying to locate the dog. But again, dogs are quick, they're agile, they're small. It's not always easy for us to find them. The next thing is when we do find them, they are not all easy to catch. One of the frequent issues we run into is nuisance properties, dilapidated properties, and wood lines. Dogs will they'll hide under houses. They will hide under trailers. They will run into the wood line. They will go to places that we cannot access to catch them. So that brings me to the next thing. We have 1.5 tools at our advantage for these dogs that we cannot catch by hand. Okay, the first one is humane box traps. What that is, many of you probably already seen a box trap at some point in time, but it's just a big box that has a trigger plate on it. We bait it with food, and we can leave it sitting and drive away, come back 4 hours later, see if we caught the dog. Mm-hmm. And we do that quite frequently. We have about 7 traps. These traps are $500 a piece. The problem we run into is they frequently grow legs and walk off. So when we set them places and we come back for them, they are no longer there. And we try to combat this by chaining them up, but people are creative. But we do set traps, and we do frequently catch dogs in traps. The other tool at our advantage is a tranquilizer gun. This is what I call a half tool, because the state restricts our ability to use it. About 10 years ago, we had the ability to carry sedatives around with the tranquilizer rifles, the dart guns. The city or the state vet board restricted that to where animal control agencies can no longer carry sedatives. So in order for us to implement or to use a dart gun or a tranquilizer gun on an animal, we have to locate the animal. We have to estimate its weight. We have to then drive all the way to a veterinarian's office to have them give us the sedatives. And then we have to go all the way back to the site and hope the dog is still there. So it's not a real effective tool for us to use in everyday scenarios. We use that for astronomical cases because what ends up happening is we have to dedicate the entire team to catching that one dog. We have to have someone sit there and watch it, someone get the dart gun ready, someone go to the vet's office. It's an operation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. One question too, Robert.
Yes, ma'am.
When somebody encounters a problem with a dog that's loose, if the dog threatens them or bites them, how quickly can you all respond? And then when you do respond, if two different parts of this, how quickly can you respond? But in other cases, when perhaps the person who is alleging the bite, if they don't call and report it immediately, I think we had an incident recently where somebody waited a couple of days or something. How do you handle those?
Yeah, so a lot of, at the end of the day, every call that is delayed to us results in an investigation and not an action, because we have to spend a significant amount of time gathering facts on things that we were not able to witness ourselves. With these municipal violations, it's important that we are able to witness the event before we can issue citations. So we have to observe the animal running at large, whether that's through videotape, whether that's through photographic evidence, or whether that's the best way is that we see it ourselves. That way we could testify to it in court. So that's definitely a struggle when we have delayed reporting actions. It really turns it more into an investigation than a direct action because there's just a lot of facts that we have to determine there.
But if you do have video that someone has shot,
Mhm.
can you use that in order to pick up dogs? I mean, I've had problems like that too, where a resident had taken some video of some dogs running loose, and those dogs actually belonged across the street. They were owned by somebody across the street, but the dogs would run loose. They come over to somebody else's house, go down the street, whatever, and the neighbors were fearful. But by the time animal control got there, the dogs were back on the owner's property at that point. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so at that point, we cannot impound the dog. Once it's returned back to its owner, we cannot go and take it off of their property for running at large. But what we do in those situations is that's where we begin either writing warnings or writing citations to bring them into court.
Now, if the neighbor says, well, the dog bit me, and now it's back on the owner's property, that's when you can do something with the dogs being back on the owner's property?
Well, that's where we, again, I'm not necessarily going to say that there's action to be taken, but there's definitely an investigation to be opened depending on the seriousness of the bite. Emily's Law, which is a state law, it's not a city ordinance, has a very spelled out process for investigating these types of crimes or these types of incidents. And the very first part of that is if animal control did not witness the incident, then we have to rely on the victim to go down to the magistrate's office to swear out a complaint that initiates an investigation from that point.
Oh, so they actually have to do that in person and
Correct.
go down?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I like the idea of a total rewrite and making it easier to understand and figure out what's what on this. It will certainly make it easier, I think, for everybody to understand. And also the dilemma that you all find yourselves in with, trying to get to these calls in a timely manner, because I think the neighbors or the residents get frustrated when it takes so long, to come and the dog's gone. And, now, you're left with no way to resolve the issue with this dog running loose. So, I mean, I think there are a lot of issues out there, but I know you're trying the best that you can. Now, with the rewrite of the ordinance, I think that's good. But as somebody who works this every day, day in and day out, and you get all these calls, what do we need to do to try to help? Is it increasing the fines, which I think we can do? Is there something else that we need to be doing to make your job easier to protect, the citizens as well as to protect the dogs?
Yeah. So, the at-large population really comes down to one issue, one main issue, and that is the prevalence of unwanted animals in the community. There are so many dogs in the community because of, quite frankly, unaltered dogs running the streets, or not even running the streets, unaltered dogs that are in citizens' backyards, because dogs, I mean, when a female dog goes into heat, a male dog is going to find a way into the fence and is going to find a way to reproduce. And that's just the reality of what we deal with. What we're working on right now, and we hope to have off the ground in the next 4 weeks or so, is a subsidized spay neuter program for citizens of the city of Montgomery. Y'all know I came from Montgomery. I almost said Montgomery. City of Mobile. We talked about this in council maybe right before the election, I believe, and we allocated some funds to start that program. So we should be standing that up in the next 4 weeks or so to get that off the ground. Our hope is we can encourage residents who have no legitimate interest in breeding their pets to get them spayed or neutered. That way we can start to cut down on the number of unwanted dogs in the community. I'll raise that as a concern because we take in roughly 2,400 animals a year. That's what passes through our shelter. And my team does a phenomenal job of getting them out. Our facility was built to hold 70 dogs, and we take care of 2,400 a year. That's amazing. It really is. But the reality is, out of that 2,400, we have roughly 130 reclaims. That means out of the 2,400 animals we take in, only 130 citizens come back to get their dogs. So that tells me that the other 2,270 dogs are unwanted, that the owners have no interest in getting them. That's because they were bred irresponsibly and no one is interested in keeping them. So I think the number one thing we can do, and it's a long game, it's not a short game, it's a 2 to 5 year game before we start to see improvements, is to increase spay neuter availability. The average citizen, if you were to go to a vet's office right now to get your dog spayed neutered, you'd pay $300 to $400. And that is just outside of the reach of a majority of our population. That's an astronomical amount of money to ask them to pay. So what our program aims to do through partnership with Save a Stray is to subsidize that cost, to reduce it to $25, $50. There are other programs like Medicare that also further subsidize the cost for certain clients. Now we want our program available to all, so we don't intend on putting in any barriers or any financial checks to people coming to get spay neuter. So basically, if you're a city resident, you reside inside the city limits of Mobile, and you have an animal that needs to be spayed or neutered, we're going to find a way to help accommodate that.
Where will you be doing that? Will that be down at the shelter itself, or is there going to be another location?
So that brings me to an interesting point. Right now, we're going to be partnering with Save a Stray, which is a local spay neuter clinic off of the 65 Service Road. The second part of that is to work with different vets around the city to host weekend clinics. So we can hit each district, each neighborhood, vets offices that are willing to work with us in those areas. We hope to have a Saturday where we can come in and do 40 to 50 dogs all at one time for that particular community. Mm-hmm. The third part of that is, as you know, we're nearing the end of the design phase of the new animal shelter. We hope to have final plans in by the beginning of March. And then we can go from there, go out to bid and all the other stuff that goes with that. That's a little bit outside of my realm. So, but in that shelter is going to be a full surgery suite. So hopefully moving down the road, we'll be able to get approval from the state vet board to start offering low-cost clinics from the shelter.
Okay. Well, that's all good news. I think I had even teased about having like a portable, like a bus comes in, to do spay and neuters, like we have buses that come in and do all kinds of things, per neighborhood. And that may be something that we can actually look at.
Oh, absolutely.
Going neighborhood to neighborhood, bring your dog and cat, get it spayed or neutered, right here on the site. And whatever makes it easier. And,
Yep.
For people to come, and if the price is right, like close to nothing, and it's right there in your neighborhood, maybe people will take advantage of it.
Absolutely. And Ms. Mangold over here, she's working hand in hand with us on the spay neuter program.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of our biggest goals is how can we get to the community? How can we make it easy for them? Instead of putting in a bunch of barriers and hoops they got to jump through, how can we make it readily available?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But like you say, it's the long game, but we've got to get started. We've got to do better
Absolutely.
in order
Yes, ma'am.
to try to resolve the issue that we have.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilwoman?
Robert, again, thank you, especially in terms of some of the things you're considering for prevention. But you talked about the 1.5 tools you have in terms of addressing this, and we know that that's limited. So when you think about enforcement, the challenges there, do you have a way of knowing who your repeat offenders are, and how effective has that enforcement been in terms of the repeat offenders?
Yes. So yes and no. Statistics we're working on pulling. I know that you requested those last week. We're working on getting those statistics for you. But yes, we do have a shelter database that whenever we receive a call to a specific address, we know whether or not we have interacted with the residents at that address before. Where that poses a problem, though, is a vast majority of our calls are not to specific addresses. A vast majority of our calls are to intersections or common locations, such as the Walmart on Schillinger Road. We very rarely ever get exact addresses of where dogs belong because the citizens that are calling in generally don't know. Now, for welfare complaints, that's kind of flip script. All of our welfare complaints, we do have exact addresses. We know where they are and who they are, and we do know who the repeat offenders are. Part of our new ordinance rewrite is going to be the first, as I spoke before, the first violation within a 12-month period requires a fine to be paid. Well, it doesn't require it. It gives the judge the authority to levy a fine. Any repeat offenses within that time period are going to require a mandatory court appearance, and any repeat offenses could also result in jail time at the judge's discretion.
Okay, so I think what I hear you saying is that in terms of the repeat offenders, right now you're trying to get that data, or do we have some data? Understanding when they're loose, you're not going to have an address, but like for dangerous animals, do you have data? Will you have data regarding the dangerous animals? Because for the most part, those because neighbors are calling about
Yes.
those. Okay.
Yes, we have that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Tori?
Again, thank you, Robert. My question, you kind of stated with certain ordinance, certain things are state law.
Yes.
So it's certain things that we can't do. Can you get that information on certain things that from a state side that we have no authority? And the reason why I'm asking for that, because a lot of times citizens, that's just an education piece. So they understand that if we want certain thing changes, then we need to reach out to our state legislator, and we can know if we need to write on behalf of citizens as well to support any initiative. So if you could also provide anything that you feel that we could have a little more opportunity to complete the job done properly, but it requires some state changes, I would love to have that information.
Yes.
All right.
And that brings me back to one thing I want to point out to you with our rewrites is it turned off. There are some ordinances that are our city ordinances are duplicates of state law, and we are eliminating those from the municipal ordinances because state law. We can file a complaint in district court, and we get stronger penalties out of state law than we will city ordinances. So for some of these violations, specifically the animal welfare violations, we can get stronger penalties and possibly longer jail term sentences by pushing these through district court as opposed to municipal court. So we are working on that as well.
And what would be the time frame that you think that we'll be able to receive all the information?
Again, as those are being reviewed by different defense attorneys and judges, I had hoped I'd have them ready for today, but we have not gotten back all of the reviews from them. So I can't give you an exact deadline, but I would hope within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
And Robert, in terms of the enforcement, when you're looking at those other models, can you share with us some strategies or tools that they're using that has been more effective in terms of enforcement?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. I will say that in the animal welfare industry, it's a very polarized field, right? It's very polarized. One side of the camp is very, it's all about live release. It's all about saving as many animals as we can possibly save. The flip side of that script is public safety. It's about protecting the community from dogs that may be dangerous. And our goal is to follow this midline, is to save as many animals as possible while ensuring public safety to the best of our ability. So you will find when we pull it together from other communities, you have some communities that skew strongly to one direction, strongly to saving as many animals as possible at the detriment of public safety. And then we have other communities that skew to public safety at the detriment of saving lives. So we try our hardest to accomplish both goals.
Anybody else?
I had a question for you, Director Bryant. Kind of a situation that we walked through. Just to make a point that in the state of Alabama, dogs are treated as property.
Yes, sir.
Very strong property rights. So that being said, working with the judicial side of the house, are you seeing? Are we taking animals for repeat offenders? Is the judges, are they doing that, or are we kind of just doing a catch and release type of thing where you're busy spending all your efforts ticketing multiple times over and over? I was just curious as are we able to take animals from people? That was all I had.
I'm glad you brought that up. That does raise a good question about what authority do we have to take property and keep it? And the answer to that is not very much. So state law, and I can even quote it for you if you want to look it up, is 13A-11-241 A and B. That's our state laws for animal cruelty to a dog or cat. And in that section of ordinances is what's laid out our authority to impound and remove animals from the possession of an animal owner. And the reality is that's only really laid out for animal welfare charges. In Emily's law, it's only laid out for animals that bite humans. There's no provisions for animals that bite other animals. So that is definitely a struggle at the state law because, as we know, we cannot pass any municipal ordinance that overrides a state law. So we are really stuck to only doing what the state permits there. But that is a very good point because when we have animals here that, such as Miss Mary that spoke to us back in December, where her cat was unfortunately killed by a dog, in those situations, there's really no mechanism at the state level in place for us to permanently remove that animal outside of the owner voluntarily surrendering it.
Would that be something that the owner then would have to just go the civil route and file suit against that owner for like killing her cat, something like that? I mean, is there any sort of recourse?
So there are municipal code violations that they were charged with that they
Okay.
will have to answer to in court.
Okay.
And there are, I don't know all of them, but there are different things that the judges can levy as a part of the sentencing in those cases. But the owners, as with any civil case, would also have, I would assume, have the opportunity to pursue a civil action as well.
Okay. Any other questions?
I do.
Seamus, go ahead.
Yes. Earlier, you talked about the fact that there are times when the judge will not enforce the fine or the court costs. So when you're doing this rewrite, will you reach out to see what are some of those circumstances so that we are ensuring that we can do the enforcement?
So I could give you a brief rundown of what those situations are. So we have some, as part of our policies, we have some mandatory citation violations, such as if a dog is involved in a dog bite, then they don't get a warning. We bypass the warning stage of the incident and resort directly to issuing citations. But many times when you get to court, if it is a first violation, if the court's never had a problem with these people before, it'll be basically, hey, don't let this happen again. If you do, we're not going to waive the fees next time. That's what it generally comes down to, is whether they're first-time offenders or repeat offenders in the court's eyes.
Now, is that municipal or is that state?
That's generally municipal court.
So that's one that we can strengthen.
Yes. But again, as far as it goes with the judge's discretion, or whether or not the judge has the discretion to levy the fine.
But
Would
on
be
our
it.
side of things, we can strengthen that.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else? I know we talked about spay and neuter, and you've got a new program coming up for that, so that's good news. I know there are various groups in the community that Save a Stray, of course, animal rescue organizations, all of those that the city comes in contact with, and some we provide funding for. Can we get a list of those that you know about, just so that we are familiar with all of the different groups?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, all right. Anybody else? Are we missing anything that we need to talk? Okay, and when do you think you'll have the draft for us so that we can look at the draft ordinance?
I'm hoping, depending on how long it takes the reviewers to look over it, I'm hoping we'll have it back in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, all right. Anybody else? All right, well, thank you, Robert, for coming. Thank you, Director Graves, for being here. Thank you, everybody. We'll be working on the draft of the ordinance, seeing what it says, seeing how we can increase the fine part, the penalties, strengthen that to help resolve some of the issues that are going on in the community, and be looking forward to the mobile spay and neuter trucks coming around, buses coming around and doing that.
We would definitely be in talks with you about that because.
Okay. And then do get us that list of all the different rescue groups, spay and neuter groups in town, because I know that there are a lot of them and they do a lot of great work.
Yes,
All
ma'am.
right. Thank you so much with that. We are adjourned.
Yes, sir.
Send me your ordinance because I've not seen it.
curious to see what it looks like. Everything touches public safety.